Have you ever asked yourself how in the world the Muslim extremists always misunderstand the Quran in the exact same way, to where they get the idea that they must go out and slaughter unbelievers in the name of Allah in order to reach paradise? Well, let's figure out where in the world this comes from. To do that, we need to understand what I'm calling the Islam's Great Commission. Now, to understand where this is at, I think we need to go to Sahih Bukhari 4364. Now, Sahih means authentic, and Bukhari is Imam Bukhari. He is the most trustworthy, the most authentic hadith collector in the Muslim world. So, Sahih Bukhari 4364, narrated Al-Bara. The last surah or chapter which was revealed in full was Bara, Surah Al-Tuba, which is chapter 9, and the last surah or part of surah which was revealed was the last verse of Surah An-Nisa. They asked you for a legal decision, so say Allah directs thus about those who have no descendants or ascendants as heirs. This is chapter 4, verse 177. So did you notice what it said? It said the last chapter to be revealed is chapter 9 of the Quran, and the last verse or ayah to be revealed is chapter 4, verse 177. But see, chapter 9 being the last chapter to be revealed would be the Great Commission for Islam. And this is very problematic because chapter 9 also happens to be the most violent chapter within the whole Quran corpus. I want to provide a survey quickly of what it says in chapter 9, verse 5. And this is known as the verse of the sword. It says, "Then when the sacred months have passed, kill the idolaters wherever you find them, and take them and besiege them, and prepare for them in every ambush. But if they repent and establish prayer and give alms, then leave their way free. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful." Did you notice what it said? It said whenever the sacred months are done, find the idolaters, kill them, ambush them. Basically, do whatever you have to do to wipe them out. And if they repent and they give alms, then you can relent because Allah has forgiven them. We can also look at chapter 9, verse 14 in the Quran. It says, "Fight them, and Allah will punish them by your hands, and He will lay them low and give you victory over them, and He will fill the hearts of the people who are believers." Did you notice what it said? It said Allah uses the Muslim community or the Ummah to punish those whom Allah deems necessary to receive His punishment. So what I get is that Allah is not powerful enough to do it Himself. He must use other means. He must work through people in order to accomplish His will of dishing out the punishment, or as the Muslims would say, the justice for not believing in Allah and Muhammad, that He would deem it necessary to use the Ummah or the Muslim community in order to punish people whom Allah has deemed necessary to receive punishment. So this really, honestly, it looks like Allah is not powerful enough to do it Himself. So He must rely on the Ummah to accomplish His will. And this would also make sense with regards to why some of the other jihadis do what they do with regards to I think it's Surah chapter 8, verse 60, where it says that whenever, that they are to create chaos and basically shock and awe the enemy. But I want to continue on and look at Surah chapter 9, verse 19 and 20. It says, Do you consider one who satisfies a pilgrim's first and tends to a sacred mosque as like him who believes in the law and the last day and wages jihad in the way of Allah? They are not equal in the sight of Allah. Allah does not guide wrong people. Those who believe and have left their homes and wage jihad with their wealth and with their lives in Allah's way are much greater worth in Allah's sight. They are the ones who are triumphant. Did you notice what it said? It says the one who wages jihad is more important in Allah's eyes than the one who tends the mosque. Do you know what we have here? We have Allah showing favoritism over the jihad fighter as opposed to the one who tends the sacred mosque. Islam has a problem right here. Islam, through the Quran, is showing that Allah has favoritism. And favoritism is a sin committed by the great Allah. And therefore, since Allah can be charged with sin, he is therefore not holy, and he is, in fact, a sinner. But I want to continue on and look what he says with regards to Allah commands the shunning of unbelievers. In chapter 9, verse 23, it says, "O you who believe, do not choose your fathers or your brothers or for friends if they take pleasure in disbelief rather than faith. Whoever among you takes them for friends, such people are wrongdoers." And just so there's no misunderstanding from the Muslims who are going to say that I've misinterpreted this or misunderstood it, let's look at what the greatest Quran commentator Ibn Kathir says with regards to this verse in chapter 9. He says, Allah commands shunning the disbelievers even if they are the one's parents or children, and prohibits taking them as supporters if they choose disbelief instead of faith. So once again here, Allah does command the shunning of those who do not believe in Islam. But I want to look at the most, I would say it's infamous verse in the Quran. It's chapter 9, verse 29. It says, "Fight against those who do not believe in Allah or the last day, and do not forbid what Allah and his messenger have forbidden, and do not follow the religion of truth," that would be Islam according to Islam, "even if they are among the people of the book, until they pay the jizya," that's the tax, "with willing submission and feel themselves subdued." Did you notice what it said? It said to fight against those who do not believe in Allah or the last day, or they forbid what Allah and his messenger forbid, and they do not follow the religion of truth, or until they pay the jizya. So basically what it's saying is Allah is commanding here that the Muslims are supposed to take up arms against the world who does not believe in the Islamic faith. And yet they wonder why the critics of Islam rail against it, in the sense of, because for some reason the Western world has this ludicrous idea that Islam is a religion of peace, when in fact that is not the case, because Islam as an ideology and as a theology has seemed to be bathed in blood. And this is precisely verses like what they use here to support the jihad attacks, that they are waging a holy war for the cause of Allah. But the question is, why in the world do they do this? Of course, they do this ultimately because they are promised paradise if they die waging jihad against the infidel. But I want to continue on and see what it says. And this is perfect. In chapter 9, verse 30. And I love this because I have brought this up before, and the Muslims have yet to even respond to this. So I want to look at it again. It's chapter 9, verse 30. It says, "And the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say that the Messiah is the son of Allah. That is their saying with their own mouths. They imitate the statements of those who disbelieved before. May Allah's curse be on them. Those who are perverse, how perverse they are." Excuse me. So I want to read that again. Chapter 9, verse 30. "And the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say that the Messiah is the son of Allah. That is their saying with their own mouths. They imitate the statements of those who disbelieved before. May Allah curse them. How perverse they are." Did you notice what it said? "And the Jews say Ezra is the son of God." I challenge every Muslim in the world to provide me with a citation of a Jew or a Jewish sect where they have called Ezra the son of God. As of yet, I have never engaged, nor has anybody else engaged, with Muslims who have provided this citation with regards to the Jews understanding Ezra as the son of Allah. If Muslims cannot provide us a credible citation with regards to the Jews calling Ezra the son of God, then Allah is obviously mistaken, and he has told a bold-faced lie. And once again, that would prove that Allah is not honest, he is not holy, and he is not righteous. If If they cannot provide this with a citation, then it is quite clear that, as the Quran has said before, depending on the translation you look at, but the translators they will obscure this, but it says that Allah is the best of deceivers or schemers. But I digress. I want to now look at chapter 9, verse 41. It says, "Go forth, lightly armed and heavily armed, and wage jihad with your wealth and with your lives in the way of Allah. That is best for you if He only knew." Did you notice what it said? It says wage. It says go lightly armed and heavily armed and wage jihad with your wealth and with your lives. Now Muslims will say here that jihad means the internal struggle. Well, no, not in this context, because it says to wage jihad, which is a holy war, with your wealth and with your lives. Once again, this is a prime example of how jihad extremists understand the Quran to tell them to go and murder the infidel. That is precisely why, if we look at programs like Robert Spencer's This Week in Jihad, where he catalogs all the jihad attacks throughout the week, and it's always a full hour of jihad violence, and yet the Muslims and the Western world cannot figure out why in the world these jihadis would do such a thing if their book does not command violence. But as we have seen here, that the Quran, specifically chapter 9, does command Muslims to be violent. Now, of course, there are peaceful Muslims, there is no doubt. But the ideology behind Islam and the theology dictates here that, according to the Quran, the Muslims should be out there doing what the jihadists do. Now, I'm not saying that's not a good thing at all. They should not do that. But the Quran commands them to do such acts, which are heinous. And Allah does not seem to care, because Allah wants to spread Islam by the sword. We also need to look at Sahih Bukhari 2785. It says, narrated Abu Hurairah, "A man came to Allah's messenger and said, 'Instruct me as to such a deed that equals jihad in reward.' He replied, 'I did not find such a deed.' Then he added, Can you, while the Muslim fighter is on the battlefield, enter the mosque to perform prayers without cease and fast and never break your fast?" The man said, "But who can do that?" Abu Hurairah added, the mujahid, that is the Islamic fighter, is rewarded even for the footsteps of his horses while it wanders about for grazing, tied on a long rope. Did you notice what it said at the beginning? It said, "Instruct me in such a deed that equals the reward of jihad." And it said, "I did not find any." So the greatest act, according to the Islamic sources, is to wage jihad against the infidel. Once again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. The Western world cannot figure out why in the world the Muslim jihadists do this. Why they fight and go blow themselves up. They do this because they are commanded to, because they will ultimately receive paradise for dying in the way of Allah. I want to continue on and go back to the Quran in chapter 9, verse 73. It says, "O Prophet, wage jihad against the unbelievers and the hypocrites. Be harsh with them." So their ultimate dwelling is in Gehenna as an evil destination. I want to look at what one of the companions of Muhammad said, commenting on this verse, chapter 9, verse 73. Ibn Abbas says, "O Prophet, strive against the disbelievers with the sword and the hypocrites with words. Be harsh, be tough with them, with both parties, with words and actions. Their ultimate abode is hell, and their destiny is hell, a hapless journey, a journey's end they shall come to." So obviously this is quite clear that Muhammad's companion Ibn Abbas clearly understood this to be a verse of warfare and fighting and killing the unbelievers. Once again, just another reason why Islam is mistakenly called a religion of peace. Now, chapter 9, verse 111. Pay close attention to this. Indeed, Allah has brought from the unbelievers their lives and their wealth, because of the garden will be theirs. They will fight in the way of Allah, and they will kill and be killed. It is a promise that is binding on them in the Torah and in the Gospel and in the Quran. Who fulfills his covenant better than Allah? Rejoice then in your bargain that you have made, for that is the supreme triumph. Did you notice what it said? It said, indeed Allah has bought from the unbelievers their lives and their wealth because of the garden. Because of the garden will be theirs, and they will fight in the way of Allah, and they will kill and be killed. So that is, like I said, the jihad fighter. They wage warfare in hopes of obtaining Jannah, which is paradise, where ultimately it's a humongous, for lack of a better term, I'll use the appropriate term. Islamic heaven is basically a humongous brothel in the sky. But I want to also say, though, that there is a mistake, shocker, in this text with regards to what it says. It says they will fight in the way of Allah and kill and be killed. It is a promise that is binding on them in the Torah and the Gospel and the Quran. So it said that this promise to kill and be killed is found in the Torah and the Gospel. So what that means is Allah is saying that this promise is found in the Old and New Testament. I can guarantee you that there is never a command throughout the Old or New Testament that says we are to kill or be killed in order to obtain paradise. Specifically in the New Testament, there is never a verse where we are called to kill anyone. No, we are to pray for those who persecute us. We are to love them. We are to care for them. But we also need to understand, though, that once again, Allah has not a clue what he is talking about. Why is that? Because even the Quran calls Muhammad the ear. Why? Because he would take stories, or he would hear stories, piecemeal, and then he would put them together in the Quran, and then they would be passed off as the words of Allah, because he receives revelation from this angel, supposedly Gabriel, in a cave. But even if you look at that, if you look at Sahih Bukhari and you look at the exchange, there is violence in the first revelation that Muhammad received, because he basically choked and said, read this, and Muhammad says, I cannot read, and he grabs him again and he chokes him again, and there's just a whole bunch of violence. So I would say that Muhammad did not see an angel in the cave, but he saw a demon. He was afflicted by a demon who was masquerading as the angel Gabriel. But as we have seen in this text in chapter 9 of the Quran, it is without doubt the most violent and bloodiest Quran chapter in the book, and there is no doubt how in the world that the Islamic extremist can misunderstand this clear text with regards to how they are to wage holy jihad in order to obtain paradise. So it would be great if the Western world would actually take time to read the Quran to understand the ideology and the theology of Islam. That way they cannot be shocked when somebody who does something foolish and stupid, and he kills people in thinking he's doing something good for God, and yet he kills them and he shatters lives, and then the Western world throws its hands up. Well, we don't know what happened. And then you have Muslim clerics who say, oh no, Islam is a religion of peace. Well, they will tell you that it is, but they know good and well they're lying to you, because they will not tell you about chapter 9 of the Quran. If we would take time to understand chapter 9 of the Quran, we would clearly understand the ideology and theology behind Islam, and that would show that Islam is not a religion of peace.